You have been deceived your entire life. And here's the part that cuts deepest: you've been complicit in the deception, lying to yourself every single day. While you're sitting there watching this, somewhere in the world, someone is already living the existence you convinced yourself was permanently out of reach. They're receiving the respect you silently beg for. They're dominating the spaces where you shrink into the background. They're constructing the empire you merely scroll through at 2 a.m. while watching success stories. That familiar ache is spreading through your chest again. That burning question that refuses to let you sleep. When does my turn finally arrive? I spent years asking myself that same agonizing question. I spent years watching people with half my intelligence receive twice the opportunities. I spent years wondering why I was perpetually the one explaining, defending, proving my existence to people who couldn't recognize talent if it physically struck them across their complacent faces. I knew that rage intimately, that white-hot fury that erupts when you realize you've been participating in a game where the rules were specifically designed to ensure your defeat. But then something shifted, and what transformed my reality is about to transform yours completely. The game isn't actually rigged against you. You simply never learned the authentic rules of engagement. While they were teaching you to be agreeable and patiently await your turn, others were studying how power genuinely operates in this world. They were mastering the psychology of influence while you were perfecting the art of being likable. They were constructing unshakable self-assurance while you were constructing elaborate apologies merely for existing. Here's the truth nobody dares speak aloud: your current position has nothing to do with inadequate capability. You're still seeking authorization from people who will never grant it. You're still waiting for external validation of what you already know internally. You're still following guidelines created by those who needed you to remain exactly where you currently stand. But consider this: what if you simply stopped asking? What if you simply stopped waiting? What if you stopped positioning yourself as the victim of everyone else's limitations and started designing your own inevitable ascent? Because that transformation is exactly what's approaching. In the minutes ahead, you'll discover 7 psychological principles that definitively separate those who obtain everything they desire from those who merely accept whatever they're offered. You'll finally understand why certain individuals command respect without ever demanding it. Why certain people receive opportunities without ever begging for them. Why some live like royalty while others exist like servants. This isn't abstract philosophy. This isn't temporary motivation. This is surgical precision applied directly to the mechanics of human psychology. When you finish watching this, you won't simply think differently, you'll move differently, speak differently, exist differently in every environment you enter. Now, I want you to place this affirmation in the comments section. I no longer ask. I now choose. Type it with absolute conviction, because after today, seeking permission will feel like betraying your own potential. Number 1, your own mouth is your worst enemy. I discovered this painfully at 23, sitting in a conference room surrounded by people whose monthly income exceeded my annual earnings. I was so desperate to prove my belonging that I filled every pause with anxious chatter, every silence with strained attempts at humor. I mistakenly believed that participation meant verbal contribution. I mistakenly believed that value meant vocal volume. I was devastatingly, humiliatingly mistaken. The most powerful person in that room spoke perhaps 10 words during the entire meeting. Yet when he spoke, everyone instinctively leaned forward. When he posed a question, the entire room's energy shifted. When he remained silent while others rambled, you could sense them gradually realizing they were exposing too much, confessing too much, revealing too much of their position. That moment transformed my understanding permanently. Your mouth is absolutely your enemy. Every word you utter is information you're distributing without compensation. Every explanation you provide is a vulnerability you're publicly announcing. Every time you rush to fill uncomfortable silence, you're communicating that their comfort matters more than your authority. Silence terrifies people because it forces them to confront their actual thoughts. When you stop racing to fill every pause, something remarkable occurs: people begin projecting their anxieties onto your quiet confidence. They assume you're analyzing them, evaluating them, perceiving through their facades. And here's the devastating reality: you absolutely are. While they're speaking, they're revealing exactly who they are, their insecurities, their desperation, their vulnerabilities. But when you're perpetually speaking, you're the one being analyzed. You're the one exposing your position while they maintain theirs concealed. Machiavelli observed that everyone sees what you appear to be, while few experience who you actually are. Your silence creates a canvas upon which people paint their own versions of your thoughts, your judgments, your authority. They fill your silence with their own fears, and suddenly you're not merely another person in the room, you're the person everyone is desperately trying to impress. I began implementing this immediately. Instead of entering conversations, I began observing them. Instead of demonstrating intelligence, I began allowing others to demonstrate their limitations. Instead of competing for attention, I began controlling every interaction's rhythm simply by choosing when my words deserved the room's focus. The transformation was instantaneous and undeniable. People began approaching me for opinions instead of me desperately offering them. They began working harder for my approval because I stopped distributing it freely. They began wondering what I was thinking because I stopped thinking aloud. Here's what nobody explains about silence: it isn't merely the absence of sound. It's the presence of authority. The person who can remain comfortably silent while others squirm controls the room's energy completely. They don't require speech to lead. They don't require explanation to influence. They don't require noise to command attention. Silence isn't the absence of power, it's the proof that you don't need noise to control the room. Number 2, your feelings are not your facts. 2 years ago, someone I trusted implicitly destroyed me completely. Not physically, not financially, but emotionally. They took everything I'd shared confidentially and weaponized it before an audience whose respect I desperately craved. I sat there listening to my private struggles transformed into public entertainment, feeling that familiar humiliation rising in my throat. My immediate instinct was explosion, defending myself, explaining what actually happened, making them understand their error, their cruelty, my betrayal. I wanted to scream until my voice disappeared. I wanted them to experience even a fraction of what they'd inflicted. But something stopped me, perhaps pride, perhaps intuition. I sat in complete silence while my world burned around me, and I learned life's most valuable lesson. Your emotions are not your identity, they're merely information. They're temporary chemical reactions you can observe, analyze, and then consciously choose whether to act upon. That moment of betrayal didn't destroy me, it revealed something more powerful than revenge could ever provide: the ability to remain completely calm while someone else loses control completely. While they showed everyone exactly who they truly were, I showed everyone exactly who I was becoming. Here's what emotional invincibility actually looks like. When someone attempts to provoke you, you don't react, you collect data. When someone betrays you, you don't collapse, you take notes. When someone tries manipulating your emotions, you don't grant them satisfaction, you give them the discomfort of failure. This isn't about becoming mechanical. This isn't about suppressing feelings or pretending indifference. This is about understanding that your emotional responses are choices, not reflexes. This is about recognizing that the person who remains calm during chaos becomes the person everyone else seeks for stability. Machiavelli noted that since love and fear can hardly coexist, if forced to choose, it's far safer to be feared than loved. But this isn't about inspiring fear through aggression, it's about commanding respect because you cannot be emotionally manipulated, controlled, or predicted by anyone who believes they know your vulnerabilities. When you become emotionally untouchable, something remarkable occurs. People begin approaching you during their crises because they know you won't amplify their chaos. They begin entrusting you with greater responsibilities because they know you won't crumble under pressure. They begin recognizing you as leadership material because they know you'll make clear decisions while everyone else drowns in emotion. But here's what will transform your existence permanently. When you master your emotional responses, you begin perceiving others' emotional reactions as information about them, not verdicts about you. When someone becomes angry at your boundaries, you don't interpret this as evidence you were wrong, you recognize it as evidence your boundary was necessary. When someone attempts guilt to deter your goals, you don't interpret this as proof you're selfish, you recognize it as proof your success threatens their comfort with mediocrity. Your emotional responses should be choices, not reflexes. Master this and you'll never again be controlled by anyone who believes they know how to make you dance to their rhythm. Number 3, control information as if your survival depends on it. I used to be completely transparent. I mistakenly believed transparency equaled honesty and honesty equaled virtue. I shared my struggles, plans, fears, and dreams with anyone expressing casual interest. I confused oversharing with connection and vulnerability with strength. I was completely mistaken about everything. The awakening arrived when I realized every piece of personal information I'd shared was being weaponized against me. My struggles became evidence of weakness. My dreams became sources of ridicule. My fears became ammunition in others' hands. I'd freely given away my most valuable currency, information about myself, to people collecting it like munitions for future conflicts. Information is power, not money, not connections, not even talent. Information, who possesses it, who requires it, who controls its flow, determines who holds genuine power in any situation. While you were taught that sharing demonstrates caring, others were learning that knowledge provides leverage. Every conversation represents an intelligence operation. Every person you encounter is either gathering information about you or revealing information about themselves. The question is whether you're conscious of this exchange or accidentally revealing state secrets while they collect classified intelligence. Here's what transformed everything for me. I began treating my personal information like classified government documents. Not because I had anything to conceal, but because I finally understood that mystery generates respect, scarcity creates value, and the less people know about your internal processes, the more they must respect your external results. Observe the most powerful people you know. How much do you actually know about their private struggles, their detailed plans, their moment-to-moment emotional states? Almost nothing. And this isn't accidental. They understand that when people don't know how you accomplish what you accomplish, they're forced to respect that you accomplish it. Machiavelli observed that the wise person does immediately what the fool eventually does. While others are ultimately forced to reveal their complete position when circumstances demand, you'll be strategic about what you reveal and when you reveal it. Your personal information, your challenges, your strategies, your next moves, these are privileges to be earned, not rights to be assumed. But here's the crucial element: while becoming selective about what you share, you must become systematic about what you gather. Pay attention to what people reveal when they think you're not paying attention. Listen to what they disclose about themselves when trying to impress you, gain your sympathy, or justify their failures. People will tell you everything you need to know about them if you're patient enough to listen and intelligent enough to remember. This isn't manipulation, this is awareness. This isn't exploitation, this is attention. When you understand people's motivations, their vulnerabilities, their deepest needs, you can create value for them in ways that simultaneously serve your goals. When you control information, you control options. When you control options, you control outcomes. Information isn't meant to be hoarded permanently, it's meant to be deployed at precisely the right moment for maximum impact. Learn this and you'll never again be surprised by anyone's moves because you'll have seen them approaching long before they arrived. Number 4, make yourself irreplaceable through relentless competence. I spent 3 years being the most agreeable person at every job I held. I was pleasant, accommodating, perpetually helpful, never disruptive, staying invisible, hoping someone would notice how delightful I was to work alongside. I believed job security came from being liked. I believed advancement meant avoiding disruption. Then I watched someone half as pleasant but twice as competent receive promotion after promotion while I remained stationary. That's when I recognized the brutal truth: nobody volunteers. Agreeableness doesn't make you necessary. Pleasantness doesn't make you valuable. Being easy to work with guarantees nothing except being easy to replace. Do you know what does guarantee your position? Being so undeniably exceptional at what you do that replacing you would cost more time, money, and risk than retaining you and compensating you appropriately, even when you demand respect, establish boundaries, and refuse treatment that doesn't align with your value. This was my most painful lesson because it required admitting I'd been using likability as competence's substitute. I'd been hoping pleasantness would somehow compensate for mediocrity. I'd been trying to secure my position through personality instead of performance. Competence is your insurance against others' moods, preferences, and shifting loyalties. When you're irreplaceably skilled at something significant, people must accept you as you are, not as they wish you were. They might dislike your directness, your boundaries, your refusal to participate in politics, but they need your results more than they need their comfort. Here's what building irreplaceable competence actually requires. You don't simply perform your role. You understand your industry better than those with twice your experience. You don't simply meet expectations, you anticipate needs your superiors haven't even recognized. You don't simply solve problems, you prevent crises everyone else would have blindly encountered. Machiavelli noted that nothing is more difficult, more perilous, or more uncertain than leading the introduction of new approaches. This is precisely why most people avoid becoming irreplaceable. It requires risk, challenging existing systems, proposing superior methods. It requires courage to occasionally be wrong in exchange for the possibility of being extraordinarily right. But here's what happens when you commit to this competence level: people stop questioning your methods and start studying them. They stop attempting to manage you and start attempting to retain you. Your value becomes so obvious that arguing with you becomes counterproductive even when they disagree with your approach. I learned this by becoming obsessed with excellence at something meaningful, not being most liked, most cooperative, most available, but most valuable. I studied every aspect of my field until I knew things people with decades more experience didn't know. I solved problems everyone had accepted as permanent. I became the person who made everything around them function better, smoother, more profitably. The transformation was immediate and undeniable. Suddenly, people who'd dismissed my opinions were seeking my advice. People who'd viewed me as replaceable were offering superior opportunities. People who'd taken me for granted were competing to retain me. When you reach this level, something beautiful occurs. You stop competing with others and start competing with your previous selves. You stop worrying about security and start choosing between opportunities. You stop requesting raises and start negotiating partnerships. Most importantly, you stop fearing others' opinions because your results speak louder than their critiques. When you're irreplaceably competent, confidence isn't something you fake or build, it's something you earn through undeniable evidence of your worth. Competence is every other power form's foundation. Build it first, build it relentlessly, and everything else becomes negotiable. Number 5, never explain yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you. 5 years ago, I made a decision that permanently altered my trajectory, leaving stable employment everyone considered insane to leave for something everyone considered stupid to pursue. The reaction was immediate and brutal. Family questioned my sanity. Friends predicted my failure. Colleagues whispered about my arrogance, selfishness, impending collapse. I spent months explaining my reasoning, presenting detailed plans, financial projections, market research. I tried helping them understand this wasn't impulsive but calculated, not reckless but strategic, not fantasy but vision. Nothing I said mattered. They'd already determined who I was, what I could accomplish, what I deserved. They'd decided based on their fears, their need for superiority, their investment in confining me to a box ensuring their comfort. These people weren't confused about my potential, they were threatened by it. That's when I learned life's most liberating truth: some people aren't confused about you, they're committed to their version of you because changing their mind would require changing their entire worldview. They need your failure because your success would eliminate their mediocrity excuse. You cannot reason someone out of a position they didn't reason themselves into. You cannot convince someone to respect you when their entire identity depends on feeling superior. You cannot make someone recognize your worth when they need you worthless to feel valuable themselves. Machiavelli observed that people generally judge more by appearance than reality. Everyone sees what you appear to be, few experience who you really are. Those committed to misunderstanding you aren't interested in experiencing your reality, they're interested in maintaining their version of your appearance regardless of contrary evidence. Here's what transforms everything: when you stop explaining yourself to those not genuinely seeking understanding, you liberate enormous mental and emotional energy. Energy you can redirect toward relationships with those who instinctively recognize your worth, creating work that speaks independently, developing skills rendering their opinions completely irrelevant. Those who genuinely love you won't require lengthy explanations, they'll trust your judgment even when uncertain about your strategy. The right opportunities won't require convincing anyone you deserve them, your qualifications will open doors before you knock. The right relationships won't demand shrinking yourself to accommodate others' limitations. This doesn't mean becoming arrogant or dismissing all feedback, it means becoming ruthlessly selective about whose opinions actually matter, whose understanding deserves pursuit, whose approval merits earning. Not everyone's opinion deserves your attention, and certainly not everyone's misunderstanding deserves your correction. When someone demonstrates through words, actions, persistent refusal to acknowledge evidence contradicting their predetermined opinion that they're committed to misunderstanding you, believe them. Then redirect your energy toward those committed to understanding you, supporting you, growing alongside you. Your worth doesn't decrease based on someone's inability to perceive it. Your value doesn't diminish because someone's invested in underestimating it. Stop granting those who've already decided about you the power to make you doubt what you know about yourself. Some people need you small so they can feel large. Don't give them what they need. Give them what they've earned, absolutely nothing. Number 6, build systems, not dependencies. I once believed freedom was a feeling, that rush of possibility when imagining escaping current constraints, responsibilities, limitations. I believed freedom meant answering to no one, showing up nowhere, doing nothing unwillingly. I was confusing freedom with chaos. Real freedom isn't structure's absence, it's structures serving your goals instead of others' agendas. It's building systems functioning whether others participate or not, generating results whether others approve or not, creating value whether others recognize it or not. Most people construct entire lives around other schedules, decisions, moods. Their happiness depends on boss's approval. Their income depends on employer's budget. Their self-worth depends on partner's validation. Their social life depends on others' availability. They've created elaborate dependency networks and called it connection. This isn't connection, it's voluntary imprisonment with superior marketing. When your emotional stability, financial security, sense of purpose, daily schedule all depend on others' consistency, you're not living your life. You're borrowing it from people who can revoke access anytime. I learned this when every life system collapsed simultaneously, the secure job vanished overnight, the permanent relationship ended without warning, the loyal friends revealed priorities when supporting me became inconvenient. In one devastating month, I discovered everything I thought was mine was actually just borrowed. That crisis became life's greatest gift because it forced the question changing everything: what would my life resemble if it depended on no one else's consistency, approval, or participation? Machiavelli observed that everyone wants heaven but nobody wants death, everyone wants independence but nobody wants its construction cost. That cost is temporary discomfort, delayed gratification, discipline building something sustainable instead of immediately satisfying. Building systems requires thinking in longer horizons than most people tolerate, creating multiple income streams instead of depending on one paycheck, developing portable skills instead of depending on one company's training, constructing personal validation instead of depending on others' praise, creating personal schedules instead of living by someone else's calendar. This isn't selfishness, it's strategic thinking. This isn't isolation, it's independence. When you possess systems, you engage with others from choice rather than need. You collaborate without compromising. You commit without surrendering control. Here's what happened when I committed to building systems instead of dependencies. I stopped fearing others' moods because my emotional stability no longer depended on their approval. I stopped fearing economic uncertainty because I developed multiple valuable skills and income sources. I stopped fearing relationship changes because my self-worth wasn't constructed on someone's presence. Systems create options. Options create power. Power creates freedom. When you possess systems, you needn't tolerate disrespect, accept unfair treatment, or compromise values for security. You can leave situations not serving you because you've built alternatives that do. Dependencies make you negotiable. Systems make you sovereign. The choice is yours, but choose quickly. Every day spent building someone else's system is a day not building your own. Number 7, embrace strategic ruthlessness. This is where we separate those wanting to feel powerful from those wanting to be powerful. This is where we distinguish between motivational quote collectors and those making decisions actually transforming their lives. This is where most stop reading because they're unprepared for what real power requires. 3 years ago, I had to terminate my best friend, not from employment, from my existence. We'd grown together, shared everything together, constructed dreams together. But somewhere our paths diverged. I was growing, building, creating. They were stagnating, complaining, draining. Every conversation became them explaining why their life wasn't functioning while expecting me to fix problems they wouldn't solve. I kept excusing them because I confused loyalty with enabling. I kept giving time, energy, emotional availability because I confused friendship with obligation. I kept supporting their mediocrity because I confused kindness with stupidity. The awakening arrived when I realized every hour spent listening to their problems was an hour unavailable for solving my challenges. Every energy piece given to their drama was energy unavailable for investing in my goals. Every emotional resource wasted on their chaos was resource unavailable for those truly deserving. Strategic ruthlessness isn't cruelty, it isn't harming others for sport or taking excess merely because possible. It's willingness to prioritize your goals over others' comfort, your growth over others' expectations, your truth over others' illusions about what you should be, do, or want. It's declining those you care about when their requests don't align with your direction. It's ending relationships draining energy even when those people aren't bad, they're simply no longer your people. It's making decisions disappointing those counting on you remaining small, safe, predictable. Machiavelli noted that since liberality cannot be exercised without self-harm, one shouldn't mind being called miserly, eventually appearing more liberal when people recognize parsimony has made revenue sufficient. Sometimes you must be stingy with time, energy, attention, emotional availability to have sufficient remaining for matters and people truly mattering. Most avoid strategic ruthlessness because confusing it with meanness. They believe ruthlessness means cruelty, but that's not strategy, that's merely poor impulse control. Real strategic ruthlessness is calculated, purposeful, often surprisingly kind in long-term effects. Sometimes the most ruthless action is refusing to enable someone's weakness. Sometimes the kindest action is disappointing someone short-term to facilitate long-term growth. Sometimes the most loving action is removing yourself from someone's life so they're forced developing strength they'd never build while you're carrying them. Your resources, time, energy, money, attention, are finite. Every yes to something is no to something else. Every hour spent on others' priorities is hour unavailable for your own. Every emotional energy piece wasted on draining people is energy unavailable for those deserving. Those achieving extraordinary things aren't necessarily more talented, connected, or luckier, they're more willing making decisions others won't make. They're more comfortable with others' temporary disappointment in exchange for their own long-term satisfaction. Strategic ruthlessness enables constructing the life others wish they'd courage to construct. It separates change dreamers from change creators. It transforms you from life reactor into life designer. Rejection doesn't break you, it reveals where loyalty still belongs to weakness. The untouchable truth, I want you understanding something forever changing how you see yourself. You aren't broken. You aren't behind. You aren't too late, too old, too inexperienced, too damaged, or too anything to become exactly who you're meant to become. You've been systematically programmed believing your natural desires for respect, success, recognition, power are somehow wrong, selfish, unrealistic. You've been convinced wanting more than you currently possess makes you ungrateful, setting boundaries makes you difficult, prioritizing goals makes you selfish. These are lies designed keeping you manageable, controllable, predictable. These are psychological chains you can remove the moment you decide you're tired wearing them. Everything shared today reduces to one fundamental understanding: you aren't here to be liked. You aren't here to be comfortable. You aren't here making everyone feel good about themselves while you settle for less than you're capable of creating, experiencing, becoming. You're here to become unforgettable, not through drama, attention-seeking, impressing those too small for excellence appreciation. You become unforgettable through developing such deep competence, strategic thinking, emotional mastery, systematic independence that your presence transforms every room's energy you enter. This journey isn't about becoming someone else, it's about becoming who you always were beneath all conditioning, people-pleasing, fear of what others might think if you actually occupied the space you were meant to occupy. The world overflows with people awaiting someone else's permission to live lives they actually want, awaiting bosses' value recognition, partners' effort appreciation, families' choice understanding, society's dream validation. But you're done waiting. You now understand permission isn't given, it's taken. Not stolen, not demanded, not begged, simply claimed by someone no longer needing external validation to recognize worth. You needn't announce this transformation. You needn't explain why you're different now, why you're unavailable for their drama, why you're uninterested in their opinions about your choices. They'll notice change without your words because real power needs no declaration. It's simply evident in how you move through the world. The relationships men surviving this evolution won't merely survive, they'll strengthen because built on respect rather than need. The opportunities meant for you will recognize you before you recognize them. Those meant to understand your worth will perceive it without your pointing it out. And the rest were never truly yours. They were merely placeholders keeping space warm until real players arrived. This isn't your journey's end, it's the moment you stop seeking the world's permission and start claiming what was always yours. When you stop explaining yourself to those committed to misunderstanding you and start building with those committed to growing alongside you. When you stop trying being everything to everyone and start being irreplaceably valuable to the right ones. You possess everything needed for becoming untouchable. You always have. The remaining question, are you finally ready to stop pretending otherwise? You don't need increased volume. You simply need becoming the one they remember in silence. If you're finished being controlled, hit like. If you're ready becoming untouchable, subscribe. You no longer require permission, take what's yours.